Hey, Nate Brown here with another video. If you don't want to go through this whole intro and methodology, I have a pinned comment below to jump right to the head-to-heads. In this video, I'm taking a look at JVC's DigiPure TBC performance across two decks, the 7600 and the 9900. This isn't just a straight comparison between the two. The goal here is to show what JVC's built-in line TBC is actually doing, how these VCRs behave in real-world scenarios, and how that compares to a separate workflow like Domesday Duplicator, which relies on software-based correction. From a hardware standpoint, the 7600 uses 2 megabytes of frame memory, while the 9900 uses 4 megabytes. So part of what we're looking at is how these two implementations perform in real-world playback. Everything in this test is controlled for consistency. I'm using the same tape throughout, the same physical VCR units for each pass, and the video heads are cleaned before every playback. Capture is done using a Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle USB 3.0, recorded a DV50, then converted to ProRes 422, Deinterlaced using Topaz Video AI, and edited in Premiere. Audio is not part of this comparison. Before getting into the VCR comparisons, I want to address something that's come up in the comments around the Intensity Shuttle USB 3.0. I've seen feedback that it's not an ideal capture device and that it has stability issues. That's fair. It does have limitations. The reason I use it is simply for consistency. It's what I've always used in my test, and for tests like this, I'm trying to control variables as much as possible. But most importantly, I'm using a reference signal. That gives the capture device a stable timing source to lock to, because without it, you can get sync instability, drop frames, or even signal loss, which can be easily mistaken for issues with the tape or the VCR's TBC. So what I'm showing here is how the shuttle performs both with and without a reference signal. And for all of my actual comparisons, I'm using it with a reference signal. So the results say focus on playback, not the capture chain. Before jumping into head-to-head comparisons, I did want to give a quick reference point on tape condition. On the left here is playback from a lower end Sony deck that I did years ago. On the right is a 9900 with the TBC on. The key point is that this tape wasn't especially worn at the time of the original capture, probably only 15 plays over its life. And you can see here, even using one of the highest end VCRs that I sell with a great TBC, there are sections that simply can't be corrected. Tape condition matters just as much as the hardware that you're using. Now, starting with the 7600, on the left, TBC is off. On the right, it's on. JVC's DigiPure system here is a built-in line TBC, meaning it's correcting timing errors on a line-by-line basis. As you watch, look for horizontal jitter, line wiggle, flagging at the top of the image, and just general instability. On a section like this, which I'd consider pretty average in terms of tape condition, the difference is there, but it's pretty subtle. The TBC is helping stabilize the image, but it's not being pushed very hard. Now the same comparison on the 9900. Again, TBC is off on the left and it's on the right. With 4 megabytes of frame memory instead of 2, the 9900 has more room to buffer and correct timing inconsistencies. On cleaner material like this, the improvement is still fairly subtle, but you can see it doing more to maintain overall stability. Now both decks side by side with their TBCs on. I get this question a lot. Should I get a 7600 or a 9900 or 9600, 9800? The 76 is an incredible value, but there are reasons to step up to the 9900. Here you can see the 9900 generally holds the image together a bit more effectively. You'll see fewer distortions, a little less visible instability, but it's not a huge difference like on a tape like this, where it's at this point in the tape, it's pretty average wear, but it's there, but it becomes more noticeable as conditions get worse. Now I'm going to move into a much more difficult section of this tape. This is where the signal is less stable and the TBC really has to work. So starting again with the 7600, TBC is off on the left, it's on the right. At this point, the tape is degraded enough that even with correction, the image starts to break down. The TBC helps, but it can't fully recover the signal. Now the same section on the 9900. Again, TBC off on the left, it's on the right. This is where the additional frame memory starts to matter more. The 9900 does a better job stabilizing the image and reducing tearing, but it still can't fix everything in a scene like this. Now both decks side by side again with TBC on. This is a heavily worn section. You're gonna see dropouts and color instability again, but the 9900 maintains a bit more consistent image overall with fewer interruptions. It still is a very challenging job in this section of the tape. Finally, I wanted to review the same section using a Domesday Duplicator workflow and VHS decode. This is software-based correction, not JVC's built-in TBC. It performs well here and gives a useful reference point. But it's worth noting the section just before this was so unstable that VHS decode actually crashed. The signal was too degraded for VH decode to process it. So while software correction can be more powerful, it has its limits when you have a tape that's in very worn condition like this. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching. If you want to explore comparisons like this in a more interactive way, you can check out my site, jvccompare.com, and I always welcome input in the comments.